everyone watching and listening around the world. Today I am speaking with enthusiastic campaigner and activist Heidi Eggleton about her interests and work in the international development sector, and in particular about her role as chair of Rotaract Great Britain and Ireland. I'm really excited to be finding out more about her and her interests today. So hello Heidi, and thank you for speaking with me today.
Hi Olivia, thanks for having me.
It's nice to have you too. Okay, so the first question I have for you is, what are you currently doing within the international development sector?
So I've got several roles currently and I've just stepped away from a couple. The biggest role I have at the moment, like you said, is being chair of Rotaract in Great Britain and Ireland. And this is a very big organisation. So most people are more familiar with Rotary or Rotary International, which is the world's largest service organisation. And Rotaract is the space for young professionals and students within that larger organisation. So it's my job to look after the team in Great Britain and Ireland that work with all the clubs within different communities, across Great Britain and Ireland.
Wow, that's really amazing and great that youth empowerment is important to you and important to what you're working in, and I think it's a really important part of change and social change to empower youth. So what led you into where you are now? What are you inspired by?
Yeah, this is challenging. I was fortunate enough to start traveling and working in different countries from quite a young age. And Rotary has formed quite a large part of that. I think coming from the rural countryside of Dorset in the southwest of England has made me realise that there's a much larger world out there that's not only diverse in culture, but people and the challenges that we all face every day.
Absolutely, and it's cross-cultural understandings that's really going to help with within international development in helping different people understanding their experiences in life and how different everyone's experiences are. So I think that's really, really wonderful. That's how you fell into it. So where and when in your career have you learned the most?
I think when I was at school, I was adamant that when I left school, that was going to be the end of my learning. As an adult now, that was that. But if anything, it was when I started my career that I would say I've learned more than in my childhood. During my time working for different organisations, I've learned a lot. I think often when you look at the development sector, you have this picture in your head that's quite perfect. You work with donors, you work with charities, you work with beneficiaries, everything, it's very pretty. The project was to do this, and this was the outcome, and it was amazing. Well, I've learned that more often than not, that is not the case. So in a way, I think stripping back that naivety has really helped me learn, and it hasn't really been easy. I've been in some quite challenging situations. Then you think to yourself, is this really happening? I guess it's a difference between being in the office and being in the field, or being in the UK and being in whatever field you're in, whether that's the field in the UK, working with beneficiaries, or whether it's outside the UK, right? I think a story I like to look back on is one when I was working for an organisation in East Africa. I'd worked for another organisation in the UK, I'd say one of the largest children's organisations internationally. I've worked with them in London in their head office, and that was interesting to see sort of what happens behind the scenes or outside of the countries of the projects. And so that was in the UK. And if we look back now to my time at an organisation in East Africa, I had one of my volunteers come to me and say, we've got an issue of child protection. What are we supposed to do? And at the time, it was my responsibility to manage those cases. Well, truth is, we were short of funding, which is very, very common in the dev sector, especially, you know, when you're working for smaller organizations. And I realized that it was a little bit outside the scope of what we would normally do. We didn't have the funding, and we didn't necessarily have the facilities in place to handle this case. So I thought, okay, I know there's a local office of this larger children's organization that I've worked for in the UK. So I suggested it to my volunteer who was local. I said, what do you think about contacting this organization? He said, don't waste your time. He said, they don't do anything unless they've been given a specific project. He said, there will not be any staff there and they won't be able to assist. Now we're talking about a child protection case, right? With a large children's organization, you'd think they'd have some sort of emergency funding in place to support the organizations like mine I was working with. So I think that was a steep learning curve to realize that, you know, the organizations that we think have got it all sorted, or, you know, are right at the top of solving these challenges is actually not always true. And I think, you know, it's learning that you can't always fix all the problems, even if they're very, very small. But fortunately, actually, and linking back to my role in Rotaract, we were actually able to raise the funds a different way outside of this big organization by going to a local Rotaract club. Like I said, at the moment, I work with clubs across Great Britain and Ireland, but me and this volunteer, we contacted the local Rotaract club of the area, and they were able to raise the funds that we needed to support this case. So long story short, we solved it through local fundraising rather than through working with, you know, a large organization. Doesn't always work like that, but in this case it did, and I did learn a lot.
Wow, what an experience and what a story. I mean, it's there are as with anything, there are always improvements to be made, and I guess that's the whole process of development and working in this sector, is that everyone is trying to help such a big area of work, and it's not always an easy process, but it's really amazing that you managed to eventually get the results that you were hoping for. So that's really amazing. And I guess then, if you've spoken about what you've learned, and what are the highlights of your work? What was like the most amazing thing that happened?
I think within the dev sector, it's like, I guess it's like other sectors, you meet some incredible people. Don't get me wrong, in my time I've met some people that I clash with, that you think would have similar values to, but it turns out you don't. Their motives are different. But then if I look at the other end of the spectrum, I've met some incredible people, you know, some people that I call my best friends, some people that, you know, I know I can go to work with, who have been great colleagues in the past, or I can refer other people to them, who are just succeeding in you know, what they want to do to contribute to the field of development. So I think my highlights has been the people, whether that's staff, volunteers, or, you know, beneficiaries.
Wow, that's really, yeah, really really interesting. And what do you then think, you talk about your relationships and how it's always developing in the sector, and you meet so many different people. So what does the future hold, do you think, for international development?
I mean, this is tricky, right? And it's controversial. I think we need to stop seeing it as international development, and I think we need to start seeing it as daily problems that people face, right, and breaking it down. Is it political, and does it need to fall into that sphere? You know, international development is so broad, and consequently sometimes we come in with sweeping solutions that you know, haven't been known to either be successful or beneficial, especially, you know, moving away from neo-colonialism approaches. ID at the moment is a Western dominated sphere, right? It needs to change. It is changing. What does the future hold? I think it's going to be very rocky. You know, we've had a lot of failures, right, over the last 50 years in the field of development. A lot of, okay, we know this hasn't worked. We know this hasn't worked. We know this hasn't worked. So I'm hoping the future holds a lot more success. But I think in order for that to happen, a lot of the power dynamics have to shift. And some people's egos are going to have to be hurt in order for that to happen, at all levels, at grassroots level, you know, at large organization level, at government level.
Yes, that's a very realistic future and optimistic as well, for the sector, and I think the increase in grassroots projects is a really amazing movement in how helping on a much smaller scale people with their everyday problems, as you say. And lastly, I suppose, what are your future ambitions for yourself?
For myself, I think keep pushing those boundaries, and I guess not letting what's happened in the past happen again. You know, it's not only standing up for myself, but also standing up for other people and different groups. You know, we've seen, you know, particularly over the last couple of years, a big push for equality, you know, whether that's gender equality, racial equality. And, you know, I think too often, you know, people say they're not perpetrators, but equally they wouldn't stand up and say something in defense of somebody else. So I think my future ambitions is, you know, making sure that I'm holding myself accountable, but also, you know, other people that I'm working with.
Being the change that you want to see, as the cliche goes, I think is, but it's a great cliche. and I really hope that your future ambitions work out for you, and that you know, manage to see the change that you're hoping for. And I'm optimistic that the future holds great things for you and for everyone. So that's yeah, it's great. Well, thank you so much, Heidi, for speaking with me today, and thank you for sharing your experiences and what you've learned in your jobs and in your work. And thanks everybody else for watching and listening today. It has been a pleasure, Heidi, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Livia.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.